I'll start out with saying, if I swear or offend anybody, sorry, too bad, you can leave. I swear a lot, not politically correct ever, and that's out of the way. As Shane said, my name is Mike Celiga. I did 23 years in East Cleveland, 23 years and 4 months. I've been in the fire service since 1991. I started out part-time, so I got about 30 years under my belt, and I'm back in it again, part-time. See how this goes. There's a little bio thing. Yeah, 800 fires I've been in. East Cleveland's poor but proud. We got a couple guys here from East Cleveland, I'll tell you. I think they're $45,000 a year now is what they top out at. Running about 7,000 calls a year. Fire and EMS combined. Inner city in a suburb is what it is. Right next to Cleveland. A lot of stabbings, shootings, and gang violence, a lot of fires, a lot of fun. What we're going to talk tonight about is PTSD, which is something that, I'll be honest with you guys, I called bullshit on it. You know, I felt bad for the guys that didn't volunteer to go to war. The guys that signed up for war, I was like, yeah, you know, you knew what you were getting into. I knew what I was getting into in the fire service, and it came back and bit me in the ass, and I have to eat my words. Because it took me from the top of the food chain down to absolutely nothing. And I do mean nothing. So we're going to talk about PTSD, understanding the symptoms, how it affects the effects in your brain and everything like that. The rates with firefighters, suicide and all that stuff. Keep on going. I knew nothing about PTSD when I'll be honest, up until February. I spent 30 days in Maryland at the Center of Excellence, also known as Camp SAD Firefighter. It's the only place in the world that has that's for firefighters, specifically for firefighters and EMS workers. No police officers, no general public. They just deal with firefighters and EMS workers that have PTSD, mental health issues, substance abuse issues, eating issues, the whole gamut. So I spent 30 days there. So my 30 years got me 30 days. 3 hots and a cot, though. I will say that they're building one in California now, and there is talk about one in the Dayton area as well. So the IAFF is recognizing this as a major thing. Myself and another gentleman he's in Chicago now, I worked with him in East Cleveland. We're making pushes for the IAFF to make training mandatory to, we spent how many hours with the NIMS books and learning all that crap, and this is the crap that's killing us at a higher rate than line of duty deaths from a structure fire. I know 3 guys since Easter that have committed suicide. 2 on the job and one that was out on back injury. And it's not just the guys that are on duty, it's the retirees, it's the guys that have been forced out on medical leave. We all have our issues, and you'll see. PTSD is a psychiatric disorder. It comes from prolonged exposure to the same type of events. It could be one event, war, rape, you name it, everybody has it. It's just recognizing it and figuring out how to combat it all. Anxiety disorder. I have huge anxiety. I'm hugely depressed. And it all comes from one negative personal experience for me, but as I go on through life, I'm finding more and more about myself, and I've had a lot of exposure to things that I should have dealt with decades ago, and maybe I wouldn't be in this situation now. I think that's about it on that one, right? I do a lot of walking around too, because I have no business and shit, so. Firefighters and paramedics exposed to traumatic situations all the time. I'll tell you my first full arrest, I was 18 years old. It was a 22-year-old female. Remember to this day, first full arrest ever. I expected to be an old person. She was just taking a shower and decided to die. I've cut, one of my first biggest calls in East Cleveland, that was a fucked up situation, was a car into a house. Grandmother, 12-year-old girl, both died decapitated when their car went into the house. The hood came back, cut both their heads off. This is all shit that should have been dealt with years ago. It's all coming back. Could be from fires, search and rescue. Mine's from a fire. My big one's from a fire. Search and rescue. Seeing one of our fellow firefighters get injured or killed. Multiple EMS calls, repeated exposure to trauma events. Can happen months later, right after the event, years later, and often is triggered by other things. I knew probably a few weeks after my event that I had issues. I never addressed them though. And the reason being is I was functioning fine. I just thought this will pass. And then it took till last year for my major trigger to hit, and it's been a dumpster fire ever since. So I'll get into my story here towards the end because I don't want to. These events are in our brain. They're encoded. You have to figure out how to file them properly. I think we all do a bad job of it because we don't know how to. We don't know how to deal with these events. Similar situations can bring it up, and it causes us to have our responses however it may be. For me, I've had, well, it says triggers are through sight, smell, touch, and taste. Mine were through sound. That was my big one. But, people can smell a candle and it reminds them of something, or, if you touch them a certain way and it reminds them of something. Cottage cheese is bad for me. It brings back a trigger of a full arrest where some guy lifted a big fat roll and but I have a lot of triggers. Just got to learn how to work through them. Hopefully we can get everybody thinking. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of this is what I learned up in SAD camp. Just trying to bring it and educate people to recognize that it's okay not to be okay and to go get the help if you feel like you need it. There's nothing wrong with it. We'll bust our asses trying to save our brother who's trapped in the house, but we get back to the station and he's moping around and we're blowing it off and laughing at him, and where's I got over time. Again, more examples of triggers: smell, sound, situations, taste, words. I had a big phrase that I heard when I came home was, that was a big waste of time and money because it taught you nothing. And that was from my wife. And that was a trigger for me. Thing is, I was functioning fine. I just thought, this will pass. And then it took till last year for my major trigger to hit, and it's been a dumpster fire ever since. So I'll get into my story here towards the end because I don't want to. These events are in our brain. They're encoded. You have to figure out how to file them properly. I think we all do a bad job of it because we don't know how to. We don't know how to deal with these events. Similar situations can bring it up, and it causes us to have our responses however it may be. For me, I've had, well, it says triggers are through sight, smell, touch, and taste. Mine were through sound. That was my big one. But, you know, people can smell a candle and it reminds them of something, or, you know, be touched in a certain way and it reminds them of something. Cottage cheese is bad for me. It brings back a trigger of a full arrest where some guy lifted a big fat roll and yeah. But yeah, I have a lot of triggers. Just got to learn how to work through. Hopefully we can get everybody thinking. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of this is what I learned up in SAD camp. Just trying to bring it and educate people to recognize that it's okay not to be okay and to go get the help if you feel like you need it. There's nothing wrong with it. We'll bust our asses trying to save our brother who's trapped in the house, but we get back to the station and he's moping around and we're blowing it off and laughing at him and where's I got over time. Again, more examples of triggers: smell, sound, situations, taste, words. I had a big phrase that I heard when I came home was, that was a big waste of time and money because it taught you nothing. And that was from my wife. And that was a trigger for me. Soon to be ex-wife. Media. My big trigger happened in the riots. Somebody posted on social media on May 31st, June 1st. This is where we were a year ago, and it was a trigger for me. I just ran across it. Can't control what people do. You just got to learn how to control yourself. So your symptoms fall into different things. You have your intrusive thoughts, which are, you know, repeated memories. For me, dreams. Every night, I'm up with dreams. I have flashbacks. Yeah, it's not fun. I mean, I live my life pretty shitty, actually, if you want to know the honest God's truth. The fire service screwed me up because I didn't know how to deal with it. And you need to learn how to deal with it, especially the young kids coming in. Because I'm just going to call it for what it is. Most of the young kids nowadays, you know, they come through the doors and their mother's tits still in their mouth, and they never had to deal with anything in life. And now we're having them go out and save lives and see this bad stuff, and they don't know how to process things. I've had people contact me through Facebook. Hey, I had this bad call this week. What should I do? And you know, I have a list of numbers that I'm giving out. Call this person, do this, talk to, you know. And then they'll just sit there and they'll just talk to me for hours on end. And I'll check on them in a couple weeks. I'm doing better, thank you. A lot of it's just talking. The fire service to me is a bad experiment right now. When I got in 1991, about 3 years earlier, is when they took the beer out of the firehouse. And that's no joke. And after that, it was suck it up, go home and figure it out, come back in 48 hours. Well, we never learned how to cope. We never learned how to deal with this stuff. And you're seeing more and more of it now. Center of Excellence has been open, I think, 4 years, and they've had 3,000 people go through it already in 4 years. One location, 40 at a time. It's like it's like a cab line. One comes in, one comes out. But you're seeing it a lot. My experience in being up there, guys that are on rescue companies are fucked up. Guys that are on truck companies are messed up in the head. Ambulance, messed up in the head. Not taking anything away from the engine guys, but they're doing things with protection. Truck guys aren't. I spent 12 years on a truck company. I was the boss of the truck company. Searching basements, going to attics, no hose line, going on all the MVAs with the extrication equipment. Truck guys and rescue guys are expected to do a lot, think a lot, they train a lot, they see a lot. And that's just, we're doing the rescue, search and rescue. That's kind of where you see a lot and you get screwed up. Avoidance behaviors. I avoided people, places, and events. That's one of the things that I'm dealing with right now with my kids. They have a problem with me historically not being around. Part of it's because I work 3 jobs, which is another thing. These part-time jobs are a great gig, but you gotta shut it down. I worked for 10 years, 3 jobs, all in the fire service. So I was basically home anywhere from 12 to 24 hours a week and not in the same time period. It might have been 6 hours here and 6 hours there. I never shut it down. So yeah, I avoided a lot of situations. After my big trigger, I avoided people, including my coworkers at East Cleveland. I would borrow people's vehicles, pick up my paperwork and go sit in the park and hide because the city vehicle was, you could pick it out, it was a Target. And I didn't want the guys to come and talk to me because when I knew that I was losing it, I wanted to avoid everybody. And that cost me a lot. So again, you're avoiding your places that make you uncomfortable. Some places make you, you have fear, you're sad, shame, guilt, embarrassment, all these different things. So why do I want to go there and make myself feel even crappier? For me, at the end, I couldn't even go by my family. Could not even see my mom, my dad, my kids, my wife. I avoided everybody at all costs.
Chief, can you go back to the part-time jobs? Can you explain to these guys about the reset, about your body, how long it takes to go to get...
Thanks, yeah, I know where you're going with this one. So, statistically, you go to a working fire. You make a grab, you're doing kick-ass things, you're the man. You come back from that, it takes you 24 to 48 hours for that adrenaline to come out of your body. And we'll cover this more in a couple slides from now. It takes 24 to 48 hours for that to come out of your body. Well, when you start to come out of your fight or flight, it's kind of like being intoxicated. Now you're feeling like shit. So what are you going to do to keep your adrenaline going? Because we're adrenaline junkies. Most of us anyways. I know I am to this day. So you need the proper time to come down. You need to balance your personal life. You know, do things with your family, so that you forget about what you've just gone through. You know, I just see pictures of him out on his boat with his family. Great way to decompress. It's still a little bit of adrenaline because you're in Mother Nature. You're still dealing with, you still have some adrenaline there. You're not totally just me. I needed to stay constantly going, and when I wasn't constantly going, I felt like crap, and I figured out ways to make my adrenaline. But you got to shut it down. I worked for 10 years, 3 jobs, all in the fire service. So I was basically home anywhere from 12 to 24 hours a week, and not in the same time period. It might have been 6 hours here and 6 hours there. I never shut it down. So yeah, I avoided a lot of situations. After my big trigger, I avoided people, including my coworkers at East Cleveland. I would borrow people's vehicles, pick up my paperwork and go sit in the park and hide, because the city vehicle is, you could pick it out as a target. And I didn't want the guys to come and talk to me, because when I knew that I was losing it, I wanted to avoid everybody. And that cost me a lot. So again, you're avoiding your places that make you uncomfortable. Some places make you, you have fear, you're sad, shame, guilt, embarrassment, all these different things. So why do I want to go there and make myself feel even crappier? For me, at the end, I couldn't even go by my family. Could not even see my mom, my dad, my kids, my wife. I avoided everybody at all costs.
Chief, can you go back to the part-time jobs? Can you explain to these guys about the reset, about your body, how long it takes to go to get?
Thanks. Yeah, I know where you're going with this one. So, statistically, you go to a working fire. You make a grab. You're doing kick-ass things. You're the man. You come back from that. It takes you 24 to 48 hours for that adrenaline to come out of your body. And we'll cover this more in a couple slides from now. It takes 24 to 48 hours for that to come out of your body. Well, when you start to come out of your fight or flight, it's kind of like being intoxicated. Now you're feeling like shit. So what are you going to do to keep your adrenaline going? Because we're adrenaline junkies. Most of us anyways. I know I am to this day. So you need the proper time to come down. You need to balance your personal life. Do things with your family. So that you forget about what you've just gone through. I just see pictures of him out on his boat with his family. Great way to decompress. It's still a little bit of adrenaline because you're in Mother Nature. You're still dealing with, you still have some adrenaline there. You're not totally just me. I needed to stay constantly going, and when I wasn't constantly going, I felt like crap, and I figured out ways to make my adrenaline high again. You become addicted to adrenaline. Then once that starts to wear off, you start looking for your other addictions. Some people like to race cars. Some people, it's all about adrenaline. Right. So here's some of the avoidance behaviors. You deflect negative things onto other people to avoid the attention on yourself. We do a lot of that for just ball busting in the fire station. Why did you see asshole on that call? He grabbed the wrong hose line. But in reality, I charged the wrong line, you know, at the same fire. You deny things, because of course, you know, deny, and when you can't deny anymore, you just lie. You also have anger issues, which I didn't have any of, did I? Never. Yeah. I was probably the most angry individual that there ever was. You blame other people for things, just to keep the heat off you, and then a lot of complaining. Basically, you try to distract everybody so that they're not looking at you. Alterations in cognition and mood. So sometimes you block things out naturally. They'll come back. They come back, trust me. There's things that I forgot about that come back now. You have negative thoughts. These are key words. I'm bad. It's the other ones. I can't. There's no use. These are all words that you need to pick up on when you're talking to somebody. I can't do the job anymore. I'm too old. I can't do the job like I used to. Dig deeper in. A lot of these old timers, like myself, I can't do the job like I used to. I got 2 bad rotator cuffs, a bad neck, a bad hip. My bicep I tore, so I don't have the strength in this arm like I used to. I can't do the job like I used to. Now, if I'm walking around saying that an awful lot, I'd expect somebody to say, hey, Mike, are you sure you're okay? Are you sure you don't need help? And not just help doing the job, help doing this, the mental. Distorted thoughts, wrong blaming, the ongoing fear, horror, anger, guilt, shame. A lot of that goes on with me all the time. And it'll make more sense when I tell the story, but I don't want to, you guys came here to hear the story, I'm sure. At least he did.
No, it's here for you.
You feel detached from others. Like literally, it's kind of funny because we used to have a running joke in East Cleveland that we were on Angry Island. There was a group of us that were always just so angry, and we were on Angry Island. And I was the mayor for years of Angry Island. That ambulance will just take the nicest guy and just break him down and make him so pissed off in East Cleveland. And I was Angry Island. I'm on an island all by myself again. Because there's very few people that I could honestly say that I could turn to or was able to turn to for any type of help. More and more people are starting to come back. And I appreciate that. But I did a lot of my work myself because I had nobody. Not even my own family. My wife, my in-laws, and goes back up to wherever it is. Shame. I couldn't go to my parents. I sat there and watched my dad cry in December when they tried to have an intervention with me before I even started using. I used, no hiding it. And that's one of the things that pushed me over, was watching my dad cry. But I was losing it. I had all this other shit going on. Didn't use yet. And watching him, along with a lot of other things, and I know it sounds like an excuse, and it probably is, couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle life. Wanted to die. Thought about killing myself. Unexpected mood shifts, so on and so forth. Next. alterations in arousal and react. Increased irritability, check. You go from just being, I mean, think about it. That's how we live our lives anyways. You're sleeping in the middle of the night. Now all of a sudden you're going out on a call, so increased irritability is nothing for us. Anger outbursts. Check that one off the list for me. Increased sensitivity. Never was I every day I cried from basically February till 14 days ago. Just driving down the road, start crying. Hear a song, see something, go to the grocery store. Walking through the grocery store trying to get food to put in my belly, and I see something reminding me of my kids. Start crying. Aggression, that was only Jack Daniels induced. So I wasn't very, maybe I was. Check that one on the list too. Hypervigilance, and yeah, check that one too. Reckless behavior, my whole life, the last 30 years, has been nothing but recklessness. Especially since 2006. We'll just say since 2006. Prior to that, I was a choir boy. 2006, all my reckless behavior started. Cheating, drinking, then I quit drinking, just doing stupid stuff. Because that's what I thought I did. Easily startled to this day. People don't understand it. Quick story, I came back from SAD camp, met my wife at Aldi's. We did some shopping. I helped her put the food in the car. I was taking the cart back. I didn't realize that she was next to me. She said something to me and I jumped out of my skin. Her response, you're just gonna have to get over this shit. That was a trigger number 2 from her. And problems concentrating and sleeping. I just always thought that I was just a shiny object person, like a dog with a squirrel, but I concentrate a little bit better now that I know how to cope and deal with myself. Sleeping still sucks. 3 to 5 hours a night, broken sleep. When I say broken, I'm up every night at 2 o'clock in the morning, between 2 and 3. And that's when we got back from my big call, and I have to get up at night. About the last month, I've got away from going to the refrigerator because I started to get a little too fat. But I would get up every night in the middle of the night, go right to the refrigerator and eat. Because that's when we got back from the call, that's what we did, we ate. So, this slide here, 40% of all firefighters, roughly, I think it's like 36%, we'll call it 40, have every one of these, which is the diagnosis for PTSD. 40% of us. The other 60% have half of it and on their way to get 100%. So you have your arousals, which is your increased heart rate, respiration, blood pressure. The pupils get dilated, and you have your muscle clenching and tightening. Negative mood swings, you guys can all read that. And I'm sure somebody in this room could say, yep, I have fear, I have anger, I have anxiety, depression. Intrusions. People have flashbacks, nightmares, smells, emotions, images, sound, all that stuff. All leads to your avoidance behaviors, which could lead to drug and alcohol use. Check. Work overtime. How many people work overtime? How many people do you think work overtime because they don't want to go home? Because you're avoiding. Community volunteer. I used to coach football to avoid my family. I was coaching my kid, but I avoided my family. Gaming. How many people like to go and sit in their basement, in their man cave, and play Grand Theft Auto or whatever game's out there. Sex. Yep, check that one off the list for me. 2 affairs with the same women for many, many years. And gambling, check that one off the list. Last year I made $150,000. Ask me how much I have in my bank account right now. Because of this and that. I ain't got a top to piss in or a window to throw it out of. I'll get that wrong. It's not just in your mind. The physical side effects to it all. We'll see in the next couple slides. This is what my brain's like. When I'm in trauma brain, they call it. When I'm in my deepest, darkest, most fucked up times, nothing makes sense. Nothing. I remember driving to people's houses saying, Mike, you're married. You got three great kids at home, a stepson. Why are you going over here to have this dinner and whatever with this woman? Couldn't stop myself. Could not stop myself. Couldn't make heads or tails. I thought my wife was evil. She is evil now. But I was the evil one. I couldn't control anything. Whenever you guys want to break, just, So, what goes on in your brain when you're in trauma brain? First of all, you have hormones. Cortisol is awesome when it's used properly in your system. It's a lot of your toxins out of your body and everything like that. But cortisol is also very damaging to you. And here's the reason why. When you have testosterone released in your body, it gives you courage. It gives you courage to do all kinds of shit. It gives you courage to go in and fight fires. It gives you courage to drive mock Jesus down the road. It gives you courage to go and cheat. It gives you courage to, steal, whatever the case may be. The cortisol, when that's increased, is like the reward. It makes you feel good. It's the feel-good hormone in your body. So, once my cortisol level started dropping, I started feeling bad. How am I going to get it back up? Keep doing the same activities over and over and over again. So your cortisol imbalance eventually will lead to fatigue, depression, weight gain, anxiety, memory problems, low libido. I found this kind of interesting. This is your brain normally on cortisol. PTSD, look where it's all at. It's all over the place. And it'll explain a little bit better why. Good. Do you have a TIA?
Yeah. Cortisol, lack of.
So you have an elevated catecholamine, epi, norepi, estrogen, and testosterone. Like I just said, testosterone gives you the courage to do unethical things, and the cortisol provides you the reason to. Plays on your reward centers in your head. And you go ahead. So how do you fix this? If you smoke, stop smoking. I haven't quit all the way yet, which we're going to have a cigarette break here pretty soon. Careful with your diet. Certain foods will help with your cortisol levels. I know one of the ones is green tea. Helps decrease your cortisol levels and balance them all out. What are some of the other ones? I don't know. I eat whatever I can get my hands on. Increase your sleep. exercise, yoga, meditation. It's all common, pretty common things, but you're thinking you're exercising not to, just to build strength, but you're also building strength in your mind. A lot of what we do is just mind stuff. Good?
One more?
Yeah, we'll go one. So according to the INFF, one in every five firefighters will experience PTSD at some point in their career. You guys buy that? I think it's probably more than that. I think it's probably like 1 in 3. If you want to know the honest God's truth. 1/3, roughly. Probably more than that. I mean, I think back to the guys that I used to work with, that I currently work with. I got a guy that any noise over top of his head, I work with him now. He had a chimney fall on him at a training fire. Any noise that's above his head right now, he shuts down for a good hour. He can't function. Terrible.
No, you didn't. Say it again, please. Thank you very much. I did.
All right, any questions so far?
Great time.
Hey.
That's what you need to go back?
More common for us to experience negative mental health impacts, obviously, because of the line of work we're in. Especially with our retired guys. We don't do enough for them. And I'm huge on the retired guys. I hear stories all the time of guys that used to leave East Cleveland and for years would wake up in the middle of the night thinking that they missed a run. It's not because they're used to the job, because PTSD, oh shit, I missed a run. Great, now I'm gonna have to take the 3 watch and stay up all night. Secondary traumas. So your first trauma might not be your first one. You're triggered. It could be, 3 car accidents from the one that you were on that was a fatal. A lot of times you see, especially with newer guys, they kind of freeze up on a call, and then they say they have PTSD. You just froze up on a call. I'm sorry. PTSD is not going to hit you right then and there. You're freezing up. But watch them for the PTSD later on. Again, back to the sleep disorders, avoidance behaviors, feeling of helplessness. You guys see the pattern here? How many people do it? I rock it. I'm the best at it. I get out of anything. This is just I don't know if anybody can really see it, but it's the reported suicides and on-duty deaths in comparison. These numbers here, so you start getting to about 2014, if you look, all the suicides are lower than line-of-duty deaths. And here's why. When they first started doing these studies, everybody's like, oh man, we ain't got no suicides going on in our station. Because suicide for a firefighter, PTSD for a firefighter, goes against it goes against everything that we are. Everything that we are. We're brave, we're heroes, we're badasses. We're weak as shit, people. We're human beings. Now everybody's starting to come clean with this. Look at those numbers. And how much do you think the IAFF's invested in it? Not a lot. I'm not mad about it. It's all fairly new. Look, 2014. It's only 7 years-ish. It's coming around. They're starting to recognize it. Slowly but surely. And like I said, I know 3 one of which I was in SAD camp with. He got out 2 days. He got out on a Thursday, was home on Friday, committed suicide Sunday. Because you go to these places, you get your help, you come back, nobody else got their help. So then they don't know how to deal with you. They don't, because you're full of shit. You did this job for 23 years, Mike, and now all of a sudden you have a problem. Yep. On to the next. So how are we going to prevent it? Belong to a social group? To be with guys at the station? Go do something outside the work. Back in the day, we used to do all kinds of shit together at the fire station, outside of the fire station. Now, it's a different time. Everybody goes their separate ways. You don't see them for 48 hours and then you come back. Training. It starts at the top. I failed miserably as the fire chief because instead of showing that I was vulnerable, anybody that approached me, I put on that tough face that said, suck it up and deal with it. I didn't show people that I was vulnerable and weak, and it cost me. And I want to stop it from costing anybody else. So, starts at the top. We need more training, but it's everybody's job. The new guy on shift, the new guy on the department. Hey, I worked with this guy for a month and he's not acting right today. Or for the last 3 shifts, my partner hasn't been acting right. I'm a little concerned. Doesn't have to go straight to the chief. We can go to, we know how the command structure works. You're not making accusations. If the guy doesn't want to talk about it, just say, hey, guys, watch him a little bit, And then it becomes pure pressure. Yeah, I'm dealing with some shit. And honestly, everybody should go get a psych eval sometime in their career. Go talk to a counselor. I'm not here to get counselors to make tons of money because I think they're overpaid anyways, but go pay $50. It costs me $1,000 a day. Well, it costs my insurance, but $1,000 a day to get in SAD camp. When all I needed to do was go see some people for a couple $50 co-pays. Ways to process your trauma. So, you got to resolve your trauma somehow. There's all kinds of different ways: yoga, meditation, talking it over. I'll show you how I process things because it just makes sense to me. But this is what happens to your brain. The thinking center of your brain becomes underactive. Your fear center becomes overactive. Your self-regulation, underactive. Underactive memory center, and a dysregulated insula, which is basically the operating system of your brain. Everything goes there and gets filed away properly, allegedly. When it's dysregulated, remember the roller coaster brain? That's my brain. I had to learn how to process things. I needed to learn how to file things. It's just like a computer. If your files are screwed up on your computer, it still works. It's not working properly. So your insula detects cues from your body. It processes your emotions, which is probably why I was cold-hearted for so many years. Helps integrate your feelings, actions, and other brain functions, and it acts as a filing system. Covered all that. And again, 20 years ago, if you were to write a term paper on the insula, your teacher would have been like, yeah, dude, you're an idiot, It plays an important part of your brain. Okay, now we're going to go into my story. This is the fire. If you look at this first set of reflective stripes, that's me about 45 seconds after I was already inside once. That's with the 2.5 inch dwelling. So it was February, what I needed to do to make myself feel good, because you win, you feel good. You lose, you don't feel good, so you need to feel good again. So you're figuring out ways to just keep yourself feeling good. And I was approached by many guys. No, I'm fine. I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then when I wasn't fine, it was too late. I resigned from all 3 of my jobs and went and got my help over in Maryland. Since then, like I said, I spent 30 days there. Since that episode, I came back, re-triggered, because I didn't have the support that I needed. I went back down the same rabbit hole a little bit. March, and well, half of March, well, a good month. Half of March and half of April, I lived in my Yukon in the snow. Trying to get help from my family. By that point in time, the wife was pissed off because I cleared out the account, paying off people that I needed to pay off from going to camp, people that I owed money to before going to camp, paid them off, and, you know, just pissed away my separation pay. She's done with me. Tried to get her help. She said no. I needed to go see a professional, all this other stuff. Wanted nothing to do with me. Since then, she's filed for divorce. She put a protection order on me. I can't see my kids because it doesn't include the kids. The protection order does not include the kids, but she made it impossible for me to contact my kids unless I went through her. It's cost me $5,000, and I'm going to be able to talk to my kids for 45 minutes via some app that they have now where I can see it on the phone and talk to my kids 1 day a week. Now you're talking about a guy, I never raised my hand to my kids, my wife, nothing. But just because I was fucked up for so many years, she refuses to forgive me. And that's how you fuck your life up. I'd rather have died. I'll be honest. I wish I would have died. And a lot of things that I did from the middle of December till I went away in February was solely hopeful that some fucked up shit would happen and I would have died. Because I didn't have the courage to do it myself. So, what better way than a drug deal gone bad? Somebody gets pissed off at me. I go to sleep and I don't wake up. Now I'm stuck dealing with this shit, which is more PTSD, which is more shit in my head, which is stuff that I have to deal with on a daily basis. And my whole premise behind going down this road and telling my story, I don't want a pity party. I want this to never happen to anybody else. A good friend of mine from Chicago, I don't know if you guys listen to my podcast that I posted on my Facebook page. He did a podcast with me, and his story and my story are identical to the point where, right up to the point of employment, because he still kept his job, and his wife and family supported him. My stepson doesn't talk to me. My wife doesn't talk to me. I haven't talked to my kids since May 19th was the last time I talked to my kids. My in-laws don't talk to me. My mom tried contacting my in-laws, my mother-in-law, to just find out about the kids. Because I can't find out about my kids. I found out through a picture that my kid was in an urgent care. Apparently he got a little pissed off while playing PlayStation and smashed his hand on a table and he bruised his hand pretty bad. She wouldn't respond to my parents. they've blocked the Celiga name. And all I'm trying to do is rebuild and let people know, let my family know that that's not who I was. This is who I am. But there's an old saying in East Cleveland, if I offend anybody, tough shit. You could build 100 bridges, but you suck one dick, you're never known as a bridge builder again. And that's exactly the case here. I'm not known as dad, I'm not known as husband, all I'm known as the dirty cocksucker that did drugs. Don't let it happen to you. Have enough common sense. Maybe something that I say here will trigger you to say, hey, look, I need to go get my help. Not saying that everybody needs to rush out and go to the Center of Excellence, but there's places around here. There's therapists around here. Good luck getting into one right now because everybody has psychological problems with COVID. It's ridiculous. Middle of April is when I decided to pull my head out of my ass. I didn't go back to my house until I made sure that I was a good, positive role model for my kids again. And then I tried to come back into the house. I never had this conversation with my wife. And it was too late. But it took me 2 weeks to get to that point, 2 to 3 weeks to get to the point. And I had to do it on my own because I didn't have insurance. Can't get in to see anybody. Nobody wanted to help me because I burned so many bridges. I didn't burn bridges. I just blew the footers off. I mean, the whole bridge is gone. There ain't nothing there. And I had to do it all on my own. But there are people out there. I mean, how? Private message me. I'll drop what I'm doing to come talk to anybody. I've done it. I'll continue to do it. Because there's so many of us out there. There really is. I think back to guys that I work with in East Cleveland. Good friend of mine, he's a lieutenant. He has every one of those signs that the quadrants. He has one thing in every one of those quadrants. He's on his way. I had another guy from East Cleveland, just out of the blue. Hey, what's that phone number? I don't know if he ever went. I don't know if he ever called. I don't know if it was for him. He wouldn't answer me. I think it was for him. Big thing. Make sure that your department has, or your community that you work for has a good EAP program that can get you the resources. Like I said, if anybody has any questions at this point in time about, you can ask me any of the dirt. I got no problems. I think we're close to the end. But don't let it happen, man. Just don't let it happen. Like, my life is absolutely a train wreck. It's terrible. I just want to know when my healing's going to start, but I guess it's one day at a time. And I'm not broke. I'm just not finished becoming the man that I want to be. Something happened for a reason. All this shit happened for a reason. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm working to find out. There's no carrying out. I finished my career. I didn't get my blowing out ceremony. I'm technically, I guess, retired. But I finished it out in Maryland. I rang the bell for my ceremony of graduation, and that was my last hoorah as an IFF firefighter. Couldn't think of a better way to end my career. Great group of guys there and ladies. The staff is wonderful, and honestly, that was my Mayday. That was my life Mayday. And they were there to answer. I mean, they were calling me daily before I went up there. You doing okay? What do you got going on? So the process actually started 2 weeks before I got up there because I had to wait for a bed. And it was my Mayday. Been down a lot of hallways, a lot of dark, hot hallways, turning corners. This is the toughest corner that I've ever had to turn. The toughest corner. And I just posted something the other day, and East Cleveland has these big apartment buildings. They're anywhere from 40 to 60 suites, 3 stories. They're U-shaped, and we burn the hell out of almost every one of them. And I feel like I'm in one of those buildings right now, because every corner I turn, there's more fire to fight. There's something else I have to contend with. You know, watching for the holes in the floors that, you know, like everywhere I turn, it's another fire that I have to fight every single day. Just to come here, I had to fight a fire. Funny part is, the same building that I just protected in June, that was my major trigger, I had to walk into that building. I hadn't been downtown in over a year. I had to walk into that building to do a shadow because I'm getting hired there at the county jail as a medic. You want to talk about anxiety? Like, I literally froze walking up the street. Panic, fear. It's a shitty way to live. And there's no shame in saying, hey, look, man, I gotta go deal with some shit right now. Especially if you're full-time and you get time off. Use that time off. And honestly, this is more of an on-the-job injury than anything else. We play hell trying to get disability for it. We worry about back injuries. We worry about cardiac. We worry about all this other shit. You guys see that bar graph? This is more than line of duty deaths. So, is that the last one? No. More alternative interpretations. Emotions are natural. I can't guarantee a good outcome, but me being there is going to improve the odds of a better outcome. I went to a job interview one time, and for a part-time job, they said, why do you want to be a firefighter? I said, well, you didn't read my resume. I've been a firefighter for over 10 years now. As a matter of fact, I'm promoted. They're like, oh, well, why do you want to work here? I said, because I want to come in, I want to check my trucks, and I want to sit around and bust balls. Because if I got to go on a call, somebody's having a bad day, and I don't want to deal with that shit. But we have to. But we have to learn how to process it when we do. So I guess that's the end of it. Couple pictures. I mean, I just like that picture because it looks like I'm really sad there, but I actually think I'm looking at John down in a hole that was pulling one of those big boat barrels out of the sewer. Don't know how it got down in there. 23 years in the fire service, full time. I didn't even get a badge. That's all I got. I got my coin. I'm about 45 days, no, I take that back. I'm about 72 days without using anything. And there we have it. Any questions? Concerns?
Thanks for sharing your story. It's a lot of good information there, a lot of good eye-opening stuff.
And if anybody wants to talk more, I mean, I had to abbreviate it, obviously, but I mean, you walk into SAC camp, they give you a book about that thick, and it gets about that thick by the time you're done. It's all on what you take out of, you know, that stuff. I mean, I used to complain when I was up there. I'm like, really, I'm spending $1,000. My insurance is paying $1,000 a day for me to sit here and fucking color. I could have done this at home. I actually watched a Disney movie one day, and I'm like, now it's all starting to come together. So, again, anybody wants to reach out on Facebook, you can. And don't be afraid. It's okay not to be okay, man. It's my big thing. It's okay not to be okay. Don't let it happen to you.
He posts every single day, hey kids, I love you. Hope you're doing well. I'm quitting on Facebook because he can't talk to his kids.
Funny story.
Every single day.
Funny story. My wife got my kids new cell phones with new cell phone numbers. This is before she trumped up some bullshit and got a protection order. And I said, well, what happens if you're at the store Now, mind you, I was afraid to go into the house to spend the night because I didn't want to catch domestic violence by her making up some bullshit. Because I know her capabilities. I said, what happens if you go to the store, something happens, kids need remember the quadrants? He has one thing in every one of those quadrants. He's on his way. I had another guy from East Cleveland, just out of the blue. Hey, what's that phone number? I don't know if he ever went. I don't know if he ever called. I don't know if it was for him. He would answer me. I think it was for him. Big thing. Make sure that your department has, or your community that you work for has a good EAP program that can get you the resources. Like I said, if anybody has any questions at this point in time about, you can ask me any of the dirt. I got no problems. I think we're close to the end. But don't let it happen, man. Just don't let it happen. Like, my life is absolutely a train wreck. It's terrible. I literally have to drag my ass out of bed every morning just to try and figure out what I'm gonna do. You take that back, there's a lot more slides, I think. So okay, so I told the story already. Now, one of the ways of processing the trauma, when I was in Maryland, we had to go every day. Now, mind you, in 30 days, I have 109 classes that total about 3.5 years of therapy in 30 days. You literally go for 6 hours a day, from one group to the next, to the next. One of the groups that we went to was called Processing Trauma, what I like to refer to as Scab Picking 101, because boy, do they pick your scab and make that thing fester and bleed like a son of a bitch before they try to build you up. So, they make you write it out. You talk about it, tell your story. They write it out on a big whiteboard. So, 2006, my trigger. This was one of my traumas that I had to deal with. B is what my interpretation of that call was. Mistakes are intolerable and cause harm and death. I rated that 95% out of 100. When I first started telling my story, I got it down to 15%. So the first number you see is what I felt when I told the story. And the 15%, or after the slash is how I felt after going through the process and talking it out. You know, the next one. These are the emotions I felt. You guys can all read them. 80% I grieved. 90% ashamed that I missed the kid. Disappointed in myself, 90%. Embarrassed, 90%. Guilt. I felt inferior. Now, can you imagine if I knew how to process my trauma and those numbers, those first 7 numbers were the 20s, the zeros, where I'd be? It's not how it worked, though. Next. Continuing out with more of my emotions. Now, my emotions, I'm not that smart to come up with all these emotions. They give you this piece of paper that's got this wheel on it, and it's got all these different emotions, and you just go through it and how you feel. Depressed. I felt abandoned. I think it was more so abandoned by the system, more so than anything else. Definitely felt humiliated that I was in the situation that I was in.